Every great empire in history died the same way, not by invasion but by ink. They did not fall because they lacked soldiers, but because they ran out of honest money. Today, the world's largest economies, including the current financial superpower, are following a repeatable process, a predictable blueprint that historians call the 7 stages of national bankruptcy. This is not a temporary recession. This is a sovereign debt collapse, the moment a nation's ability to borrow utterly vanishes. If you understand this blueprint, you can predict exactly where we stand and, more importantly, when the system will reach its breaking point. In today's The Debt Cycle Decode Deep Dive, we will meticulously dissect these 7 stages, analyzing historical and modern data to prove that the debt spiral always ends in one of 2 ways: open default or hyperinflationary destruction. The spiral begins with Stage 1, eternal optimism and cheap credit. In this phase, a nation has just won or cemented its global leadership position, often after a military victory or a technological revolution. Its currency is strong. Creditors are fully trusting, and as a result, the interest rate to borrow is near zero. Debt is seen as an instrument of growth, not a burden. The nation can borrow to build roads, navies, or new technology. This is the stage where belief in the empire's future is absolute. And every economist believes that this time is different. That confidence quickly pushes us into Stage 2, the exorbitant privilege. Here, the nation's currency has become the global reserve asset, like the Roman denarius in its prime or the Florentine florin during the Renaissance, and after World War II, the US dollar. This exorbitant privilege means the nation can pay its debts with the very currency it prints. When the world needs your currency for oil trade or commerce, they are forced to buy your bonds, turning them into your unconditional creditors. This foreign demand for your bonds allows you to continue borrowing at extremely low rates, masking the true cost of money printing and creating the illusion of infinite financial strength. And when power seems infinite, restraint disappears. This is when we enter Stage 3, reckless spending and excess debt. The government begins to believe it cannot fail, and debt is no longer used for investment, but shifts towards excessive social welfare spending, inefficient infrastructure projects, or costly foreign military interventions. The extravagance of the French monarchy at Versailles, the protracted colonial wars of the British Empire, or the explosion of unfunded social programs in modern nations, these are all classic examples. Public debt begins to grow faster than GDP. Politicians and economists start using phrases like the debt-to-GDP ratio doesn't matter. This is the moment the burden has become too heavy, but no one dares look directly at the truth. Then, interest rate pressure begins to bite. Stage 4. Unserviceable debt costs and the erosion of trust. This is the most dangerous transition stage. As debt hits a critical threshold, the cost of servicing the interest on that debt annually begins to surpass other essential expenditures. Look at modern data. The interest cost on debt for certain major nations is rising faster than defense spending. This means the government is paying for the past more than investing in the future. When markets realize that all tax revenue is insufficient to cover essential costs plus interest, trust begins to erode. Creditors demand higher rates to compensate for risk, pushing the nation into an inescapable loop. Higher rates lead to higher debt, which leads to even higher rates. And this is where the most desperate governments make their fateful move. Stage 5, currency manipulation and the destruction of confidence. When nobody is willing to buy bonds at a reasonable rate, and there isn't enough tax money to pay the interest, the central bank is forced to intervene. They launch massive money printing programs known as quantitative easing or QE to buy their own government's debt. This is when money is printed not to meet economic need, but to satisfy the needs of the state. As the central bank's balance sheet expands endlessly, it sends a clear message to the world. This debt will never be repaid with real money. It will be repaid with newly devalued money. Inflation becomes a form of hidden default, an invisible tax on savers, silently erasing the debt burden. That currency debasement in Stage 5 immediately triggers Stage 6, the shift in reserve assets and global financial fragmentation. As the reserve currency is weakened, other nations, especially geopolitical rivals, become fearful. They no longer want to hold the nation's debt assets. We see this unfolding right now. Central banks globally are accumulating gold at a record pace, the highest in 73 years, while new economic blocs like BRICS are actively seeking an alternative trade currency. a financial system unbound by the debt cycle of a single superpower. This is the strategic retreat from the old system, a preparation for the upcoming financial power transfer. Once trust in the reserve currency is broken, it can never be truly repaired. And finally, the spiral concludes at stage 7, the fateful choice: open default or painful reform. There are only two exits. The first exit is the path of Weimar Germany or Venezuela, the complete collapse of the currency leading to hyperinflation. In this scenario, the debt is wiped out nominally, but the purchasing power of the population and the entire economy are destroyed. The second exit is the path of painful fiscal reform, like the austerities suffered by Greece or Italy: deep spending cuts, massive tax increases, and decades of economic pain to re-establish trust. Neither exit is easy, and history shows that politicians almost always choose the easy money-printing route over the painful reform route, pushing the nation toward hyperinflation. If you track the data of major economies today, you will find that most are currently situated between stage 4 and stage 5. Debt servicing costs are soaring, and central banks are trapped between printing money to sustain the system and tightening to fight inflation. The question is no longer if this debt spiral will end, but when and how. Understanding this blueprint is your strongest financial defense tool in this era of instability. If this kind of deep financial and historical analysis helps you gain clarity on the economic future, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. That subtle subscribe button is the biggest support you can give us to continue decoding the hidden mechanisms that shape your wealth and your life. And if you think that only public debt is the problem, you are mistaken. In our next video, we rewind to the very origins of modern currency to answer a fundamental, haunting question: is all money debt? The hidden history of fractional reserve banking. Don't miss it.